The night before my 43rd birthday, I woke with a violence that left me gasping. My chest heaved as though I'd been drowning, pulled under by invisible hands and suddenly released. The darkness of the bedroom pressed against my eyes until I fumbled desperately for the lamp, my fingers clumsy with panic. Light spilled across the room in a golden wash. Beside me, Jackson slept, undisturbed, his back to me, rising and falling with the steady rhythm of someone without a care in the world. I listened to that sound, so even, so peaceful, while my own breathing remained ragged and uneven. I pressed a trembling hand to my chest. A dream, just a dream. But my nightgown clung to my skin, damp and cold. My heart hammered as if it were trying to escape my rib cage. And that image refused to fade. I slipped from the bed as carefully as I could, bare feet whispering against the hardwood floor. In the kitchen, I poured water with shaking hands, the glass chattering against the faucet. I drank, but the tightness in my throat wouldn't ease. I sank into a chair at the small table, dropped my face into my palms and squeezed my eyes shut. The vision returned instantly, as vivid as if it were happening again. My mother, Margaret Holloway, dead for nearly 4 years now. She had been standing at the foot of our bed, wearing the lavender blouse I had buried her in. Her expression wasn't soft or comforting. It was urgent, afraid. "Roselyn!" Her voice had been clear as crystal, cutting through the dream like a blade. "Stop wearing that perfume he gave you. Do you hear me? Stop wearing it." 3 times she'd said it. 3 times, never looking away, her eyes wide and pleading. And then she dissolved into nothing, leaving me alone in the dark. I shook my head, rubbing my temples hard, trying to push the memory away. Ridiculous. Stress. Grief playing tricks. Tomorrow was my birthday. My sister was driving in from 2 hours away, a small celebration at our favorite restaurant. I had been anxious about it for days. Of course, my subconscious was acting up. But then, why had the dream been about the perfume? My stomach twisted. I gripped the glass tighter. The perfume. 3 weeks ago, Jackson surprised me with it. An elegant bottle, wrapped in tissue paper, presented without occasion. He'd smiled, actually smiled, and told me he wanted me to have something special. Jackson, who had forgotten my last 2 birthdays. Jackson, who once let our anniversary pass without acknowledgement. The perfume was beautiful, a soft floral scent with notes of jasmine and vanilla. I'd been so moved I cried, and he'd been insistent, almost strangely so. "Wear it every day," he'd said, watching me closely. "I want you to feel beautiful. You deserve that." At first, I thought it was sweet, romantic, even. But lately, I stood abruptly and walked to the window. Dawn was still an hour away. The world outside was silent and shadowed. I wrapped my arms around myself, suddenly cold. My mother's voice echoed again in my mind, sharp and desperate. "Stop wearing that perfume he gave you." I turned and looked back toward the bedroom. Through the doorway, I could just make out the dresser, and there, sitting on top of it, was the perfume bottle. Open. I was certain I had closed it before bed. My breath caught. My skin prickled with goosebumps that had nothing to do with the temperature. No, it's nothing. I'm being paranoid. I must have left it open and forgotten. But my mother's face wouldn't leave my mind. That look of terror, that desperate warning. I stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the bottle gleaming faintly in the dim light from the hallway. And for the first time in 20 years of marriage, I felt afraid of the man sleeping in my bed. I tried to push the dream away as morning came, but it clung to me like cobwebs I couldn't shake off. So I did what I always did when my mind wouldn't settle. I replayed the facts, searching for logic where fear had taken root. The perfume had arrived 3 weeks ago on an ordinary Tuesday evening. No special occasion. No anniversary looming. Just Jackson walking through the door with a wrapped box in his hands and an expression I hadn't seen in years. "For you," he'd said, almost shy about it.
I'd stared at him, genuinely confused. Jackson didn't do gifts. Not anymore. Maybe in the early years of our marriage, back when we were still trying to impress each other, but those days had faded into a comfortable, if distant, routine. He'd forgotten my birthday last year entirely, remembered 3 days later and shrugged it off with a tired, "Sorry, work's been crazy." The year before that, our anniversary came and went without acknowledgement until I finally bought myself flowers and a card, signing his name in the space he should have filled. So when he handed me that box, something in my chest tightened with an emotion I couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. Or a suspicion disguised as hope. Inside was the perfume bottle, elegant and expensive looking, the glass cut in delicate facets that caught the light. "I wanted you to have something nice," Jackson said, watching me with an intensity that felt unfamiliar. "You work so hard. You deserve to feel special." I cried, actually cried, not just because of the gift, but because for a moment, I felt seen again. "Wear it every day," he'd insisted, as I dabbed it on my wrists. "To work, to church, even just running errands. I want you to feel beautiful all the time." At first, his attention felt wonderful. He'd notice when I wore it, complimenting me with a smile that seemed genuine. "There's my beautiful wife," he'd say, or "You smell amazing today." Small things, sweet things, things he hadn't said in years. But then the compliments started feeling mandatory, scripted. He'd ask if I was wearing it before I left the house, frown slightly if I forgot, remind me gently, then not so gently, that he'd bought it specifically for me. And the bottle. God, the bottle. I'd only used it for a week when I noticed it was nearly empty. I mentioned it casually, thinking I'd just buy a new one myself, but Jackson had already ordered a replacement. It arrived the next day. "Can't have you running out," he said. I laughed it off then, thought it was devotion. Now, standing in my kitchen, with my mother's warning echoing in my skull, it felt like something else entirely. The dizziness had started around the same time. Subtle at first. A slight lightheadedness when I stood too quickly. Fatigue that I blamed on poor sleep. Headaches that throbbed behind my eyes by mid-afternoon. "It's just stress," Jackson said when I mentioned feeling off. "Or your age. Women go through changes, Roselyn. Maybe you should rest more." So I rested and wore the perfume and felt worse. My mother's voice whispered through my thoughts, urgent and afraid. "Stop wearing that perfume he gave you." I looked at the bottle sitting on the counter where I had moved it from the bedroom, and for the first time, I wondered if love could wear a pretty disguise. It happened in aisle 7 of the grocery store, right between the canned vegetables and the pasta sauce. The one moment I was reaching for a jar of marinara, the next the floor was rushing up to meet my face, my vision tunneled to a pinpoint of light, then nothing. I came to with a store employee hovering over me, her name tag swimming in and out of focus, and a small crowd of concerned strangers forming a circle around where I had fallen. "Don't move," someone said. "We've called an ambulance." The hospital was a blur of fluorescent lights and concerned faces. They ran tests. So many tests. Blood work, EKG, CT scan. Every machine they had, it seemed, searching for an answer to why a relatively healthy 43-year-old woman would collapse without warning. They found nothing. "Your labs look perfect," the doctor said, confusion increasing his brow. "Heart's fine, blood pressure is normal, no signs of anemia or thyroid issues. Have you been under unusual stress lately?" I wanted to laugh. Or cry. Both, maybe. Jackson arrived at the hospital with flowers and worry etched convincingly across his face. He held my hand, asked all the right questions, played the devoted husband so well that even I almost believed it. But I'd started noticing things. The way he watched me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way his concern felt rehearsed, like lines he'd practiced. The way he kept circling back to the same suggestion. "Maybe you just need to take better care of yourself. Keep up with your routines. The perfume always makes you feel better, right?"
Over the next week, my body betrayed me in new and terrifying ways. The weakness intensified until lifting a coffee mug felt like a monumental task. My heart would suddenly race for no reason, thundering in my chest like it was trying to escape. I'd be reading a book when the words would blur and swim, forcing me to close my eyes and wait for the world to steady. I fainted again, this time at church during Sunday service. I crumpled right there in the pew and woke to find half the congregation praying over me. More hospital visits, more tests, more doctors shaking their heads and suggesting stress, hormones, anxiety. "There's no medical explanation for your symptoms," one neurologist told me gently, as if I were imagining my own body's collapse. But I wasn't imagining anything. Every morning I woke weaker than the day before. Every afternoon brought new tremors, new dizziness, new proof that something was deeply, terribly wrong. And through it all, Jackson was there. Attentive, concerned, insistent. "You need to rest," he'd say, guiding me back to bed. "And please keep wearing the perfume. It's one of the few things that makes you smile anymore." I'd watch him leave the room, and my mother's voice would rise like a tide in my mind, louder each time, more desperate. "Stop wearing that perfume he gave you. Stop wearing that perfume." And I'd notice the way Jackson lingered in doorways, the way his eyes followed me with an expression I couldn't quite read, the way he seemed to be waiting for something, watching, always watching. She came to me again that night, more solid than before, more real. My mother stood not at the foot of the bed this time, but right beside me, close enough that I should have felt her breath. Her eyes were wild with fear. "Roselyn," she said, and her voice cracked with urgency. "He is not who you think he is. Do you hear me? He is not who you think he is." I tried to speak, to ask what she meant, but no sound came. I could only stare as she reached toward me, her hand passing through the air like smoke. "Stop wearing that perfume. Please, baby, please." Then she was gone, and I was awake, my heart slamming against my ribs. The room was dark, except for the green glow of the alarm clock, 3:47 a.m. Jackson's breathing was steady beside me, undisturbed, normal, but nothing felt normal. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I might see, and there it was, the perfume bottle on my nightstand, open, the cap sitting neatly beside it, and it had moved. I was certain of it. Last night, it had been on the dresser across the room. Now it sat inches from my face, close enough that I could smell the sweet floral notes even without spraying it. I hadn't moved it. "Did you wear some before bed?" Jackson's voice cut through the darkness, and I nearly screamed. I thought he'd been asleep. What? My voice came out thin, shaky. The perfume. He rolled toward me, and even in the dimness, I could see his eyes were wide open, alert. Did you put some on before bed? I thought I smelled it. No, I didn't. Something flickered across his face. Annoyance, frustration. It was there and gone so quickly I might have imagined it, but the sharpness in his voice was unmistakable. You should. It helps you relax. He rolled back over, ending the conversation with the finality of someone used to getting his way. I lay there frozen, staring at the ceiling until dawn crept through the curtains. The next morning, I hid the perfume, tucked it deep in the back of the linen closet, behind towels and cleaning supplies, somewhere Jackson would never look. By the time I returned from running errands that afternoon, it was back on the dresser. Same spot, same perfect placement. My hands trembled as I stared at it. He'd gone looking for it, found it, put it back.
Something inside me cracked. I started watching him the way he'd been watching me, really watching. Late-night phone calls he took in the garage, speaking in low tones I couldn't quite hear. Drawers in his office that had suddenly acquired locks I didn't remember being there before. Our joint bank account showing withdrawals I hadn't made, small amounts, but regular. Too regular. And the way he looked at me sometimes when he thought I wasn't paying attention, not with love, not with concern, with calculation. My mother's voice echoed in my mind, relentless now, impossible to ignore. He is not who you think he is. I was beginning to believe her. I made a decision that felt both terrifying and necessary. I would stop wearing the perfume completely, no exceptions, no matter what Jackson said. For 48 hours, I avoided it, made excuses. I have a headache, I'd say. Or, I think I'm developing a sensitivity to fragrances. Each time I watched Jackson's face carefully, cataloging his reactions. And something miraculous happened. My body began to heal. The weakness that had become my constant companion started to lift. The trembling in my hands steadied. By the second day, I could walk from room to room without feeling like I might collapse. My vision cleared. The pounding headaches that had plagued me for weeks simply stopped. The improvement terrified me more than the illness ever had, because it meant my mother had been right about everything. I waited until Jackson left for work, then I began to search. My hand shook as I opened his desk drawer, the one that had never been locked before, but now required me to pick it open with a bobby pin, a skill I'd learned from a YouTube video at 2 a.m. Inside, I found bank statements he'd been hiding. Our joint bank account was one thing, but these were different. A separate account, one I didn't know existed. I spread the papers across the desk, my heart hammering as I traced the same name appearing over and over, Diana Moreland. Monthly payments, consistent amounts. For years. My stomach lurched. I photographed everything with trembling fingers, then carefully returned the statements to their exact positions. That evening, I went through the bathroom cabinets, searching for something I'd almost thrown away a dozen times. I was sentimental about stupid things, boxes, ribbons, the packaging from gifts that meant something to me. There, in the back of the cabinet under the sink, I found them. The empty perfume bottles. 3 of them. I'd kept them because Jackson had given them to me, because they'd felt like proof that he still cared. Now they felt like evidence. I slipped them into a canvas shopping bag and hid them in my car, already planning my next move. A lab. Testing. Proof of what I was beginning to suspect, but couldn't quite bring myself to believe. "Did you wear the perfume today?" Jackson asked that night at dinner. his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "I forgot," I lied. His jaw tightened. "You're forgetting a lot lately, Roselyn. The perfume, taking your vitamins, even simple things. Maybe you should see a neurologist. Early onset dementia runs in families, doesn't it?" I stared at him. He was gaslighting me. Actually gaslighting me. Trying to make me doubt my own mind while "I don't have dementia," I said quietly. "Of course not." He reached across the table, patted my hand with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "But you haven't been yourself. Just trying to help, sweetheart." I pulled my hand away slowly, my skin crawling where he touched me. That night I lay in bed listening to him breathe, and I finally accepted the truth my mother had been screaming at me from beyond death itself. The man I'd married was trying to kill me.
I found a private lab 2 towns over, the kind that didn't ask questions if you paid in cash. I handed over all 4 bottles, the current one I'd secretly taken from the dresser, plus the 3 empty ones I'd saved, and gave them a fake name. "We'll call you in 3 to 5 business days," the technician said. 3 days. I had to survive 3 more days of pretending everything was normal. Meanwhile, my body continued its miraculous recovery. Each morning, I woke stronger, clearer, more myself than I'd been in weeks. The evidence was undeniable now. Whatever had been making me sick, I wasn't being exposed to it anymore. But Jackson noticed. "You look better," he said one morning, and something in his tone made my blood run cold. It wasn't relief. It was suspicion. "I'm feeling better," I said carefully. "Good. Then you should start wearing the perfume again, the one I gave you." He pulled the bottle from his pocket, he'd been carrying it with him, and set it on the counter between us. "I insist." "I think I need a break from fragrances for a while." "Roselyn," his voice hardened, "I bought this for you. The least you can do is wear it." I stared at the bottle, then at him, seeing a stranger where my husband should be. "Of course," I whispered. "Later." He watched me for a long moment, then nodded and left for work. The lab called on day 3. "Ma'am, we need to discuss these results in person. Can you come in today?" My hands shook so badly I could barely drive. The technician's face was grave as she handed me the report. All 4 samples contain the same compound, a slow-acting toxin that mimics natural illness, weakness, dizziness, organ stress over time. If you'd continued exposure... She didn't finish. She didn't have to. I sat in my car in the parking lot and screamed until my throat was raw. He'd been poisoning me, slowly, deliberately, for weeks. I drove home in a daze, the report burning in my purse. Jackson wasn't home yet. I had time. This time, when I searched his office, I wasn't careful. I didn't care about leaving evidence. I tore through everything, drawers, files, the locked cabinet I'd been too afraid to force open before. That's when I found them. Photographs. Dozens of them. Jackson with a woman I'd never seen before. Blonde, younger, smiling. His arm around her shoulders. His lips on her cheek. And children. A boy and a girl, maybe 8 and 10, grinning up at the camera. In one photo, they wore matching Christmas sweaters. The boy's shirt read, "World's Best Dad." I thought I might vomit. I kept digging. Credit card statements showing hotel bookings in cities he claimed were business trips, receipts for jewelry I'd never received, school tuition payments, 11 years of them, 11 years. A life insurance policy on me, taken out 6 months ago. $2 million. The inheritance from my mother locked in my name, accessible to Jackson only if I became incapacitated or died. Every piece fit together with horrible clarity. I sank to the floor, papers scattered around me, and finally understood. My mother's dream wasn't grief. It wasn't imagination. It wasn't my subconscious. It was her, really her, reaching across death itself to save me. "Thank you, Mom," I whispered through tears. "I heard you. I finally heard you." I found my mother's journals in the attic that night, buried in a box I'd been too heartbroken to open after she died. Her handwriting stared up at me from pages yellowed with time, and as I read, my hands began to shake. March 15th. I don't trust Jackson. Never have. There's something in his eyes when he looks at Roselyn like he's calculating something. She won't hear it. She thinks I'm being overprotective. Maybe I am, but a mother knows. June 2nd. He asked about my will today. "Just curious," he said. Too curious. "I'm changing it tomorrow. Everything goes to Roselyn. Only Roselyn. He'll never touch a penny unless something happens to her. God forgive me for thinking such dark thoughts about my daughter's husband." I pressed the journal to my chest, tears streaming down my face. She'd known. She'd protected me even then. But I needed more than her suspicions. I needed proof of his plan. Jackson's laptop sat on his desk, still warm from his last use. I knew his password, our anniversary date, the irony of which wasn't lost on me. My fingers trembled as I opened his browser history. What I found turned my stomach. Search after search, meticulously researched. Slow-acting poisons that mimic natural illness, untraceable toxins symptoms. How long does arsenic poisoning take? Perfume as delivery method for poison. I clicked on a document buried in his files, innocuously titled Project Timeline. But it wasn't a work project. It was me. Week 1 to 2, initial symptoms should present. Fatigue, mild dizziness. She'll attribute to stress. Week 3 to 4, symptoms intensify. First hospital visit likely. Tests will show nothing. Dosage calculated for this. Weeks 5 to 6, significant decline. Multiple hospital visits. Doctors will suspect chronic illness. No cure will be found. Weeks 7 to 8, critical phase. Organ stress should be evident. Possibly ICU admission. Weeks 9 to 10, expected outcome. Natural-looking decline, no suspicion. Every symptom I'd experienced was listed there. Every doctor's visit he'd anticipated. Every stage of my deterioration planned with cold precision. He'd researched how long it would take to kill me and made sure he had enough perfume bottles to complete the job. I scrolled further and found financial projections, my mother's inheritance, $3 million, broken down into investment portfolios, real estate purchases, trust funds for his other children. My life had a price tag, and he'd already spent it in his mind. The life insurance policy would be a bonus, $5 million total, enough to build the life he really wanted with the family he actually loved. I was just an obstacle, a name on a bank account, a problem to be eliminated. I saved everything to a flash drive, my movements mechanical, detached. Some part of me had gone numb, protecting itself from the full weight of the betrayal. When I was done, I sat in his chair and stared at the screen until the words blurred. Then, I made a choice. I would not be silent. I would not be a victim. I would not let him win. My mother had fought to protect me from beyond the grave. Now it was time for me to fight back. I waited until he came home, sitting at the kitchen table with the lab results laid out in front of me like cards in a final hand.
My phone sat in my pocket, already recording. Jackson walked in with his usual tired smile, the mask he wore so well. "Hey, honey, what's for—" He stopped when he saw my face, saw the papers. "We need to talk," I said. My voice was steady, calm. I'd practiced this. "About what?" He set down his briefcase, but his eyes never left the documents. "About the perfume, about what's in it." "I don't know what you're talking about. Are you feeling okay? You've been acting strange lately." "I'm fine, actually. Better than I've been in weeks. Isn't that interesting?" I leaned forward. "I stopped wearing the perfume, Jackson. 48 hours later, all my symptoms disappeared." Something flickered behind his eyes. "You're imagining things." "Am I?" I pushed the lab report across the table. "This says otherwise. Slow-acting toxin, found in every bottle you gave me." He stared at the paper, then at me. "Where did you get this? You're not thinking clearly. You've been sick, Roselyn. You're unstable. Maybe we should call your doctor." "I know about Diana."
The name hit him like a physical blow. The color drained from his face. "I know about the children. 11 years, Jackson. 11 years you've been living a double life." I stood, pulling out the photographs, throwing them on the table one by one. School tuition, hotel rooms, family vacations. While I was here thinking I was losing my mind, you were building a whole other life. "Rosamond, let me explain." "Explain what? How you've been poisoning me so you could access my mother's inheritance? How you needed me incapacitated or dead?" I pulled out his laptop printouts. "I found your timeline, your research, every symptom I experienced. You planned it." His face transformed. The concerned husband vanished, replaced by something cold and desperate. "You went through my things?" His voice rose, sharp with panic. "You had no right." "I had no right?" I almost laughed. "You tried to murder me." "You don't understand the pressure I've been under." He slammed his hand on the table. "Do you have any idea what it costs to support 2 families? Diana needed help. The kids needed—" "So you decided to kill me for my inheritance?" "It was supposed to be peaceful." The words exploded from him before he could stop them. "You weren't supposed to suffer, just drift away. No one would have questioned it. The doctors already thought you were dying of some mystery illness." I stared at him, this stranger wearing my husband's face. "Did you ever love me?" My voice cracked despite my resolve. "Was any of it real?" His silence was answer enough. His expression shifted again to something darker, threatening. "You can't prove any of this. Who's going to believe you? A sick woman with wild accusations." "I recorded everything," I said quietly. "Every word you just said. And I've already sent copies to my lawyer, my sister, and someone you don't know about." The rage drained from his face, replaced with pure fear. I picked up my purse, walked to the door, and looked back at him one last time. "My mother warned me. She came to me in a dream and told me to stop wearing the perfume. I should have listened sooner." "Roselyn, wait!" But I was already gone. Not as a victim, as a survivor. The police station was cold and fluorescent bright, but I felt nothing but clarity as I laid everything on the detective's desk. Lab reports confirming the toxin in every perfume bottle, financial statements showing 11 years of payments to Diana Moreland, photographs of Jackson with his secret family, his laptop files documenting the timeline of my planned death, the recording of his confession, my medical records showing the mysterious illness that vanished the moment I stopped wearing the perfume. The detective's face grew darker with each piece of evidence. "Mrs. Lake," she said quietly, "you've built an airtight case." They arrested him that evening. I watched through my sister's living room window, as police cars surrounded our house, their lights painting the neighborhood in red and blue. Neighbors gathered on their lawns, whispering, staring. The man they'd known as a devoted husband was let out in handcuffs, his head down, his perfect mask finally shattered for everyone to see. Diana Moreland released a statement 2 days later, cold, definitive. She'd had no idea he was still married, she claimed. No idea about the poisoning. She wanted nothing to do with him. The children, his children, would not be visiting him in jail. His law firm dropped him within the week. The partners issued a press release expressing their horror and distancing themselves from his actions. His reputation, built over 20 years, collapsed in days. I watched it all unfold with a strange detachment, as if it were happening to someone else. But slowly, as the weeks passed, I began to feel like myself again. My body healed. The strength returned to my limbs. The trembling stopped. The dizziness that had haunted me vanished like a bad dream. I started taking walks in the morning, feeling the sun on my face, breathing air that wasn't tainted with poison. My spirit healed too, though that took longer. Therapy helped. So did my sister, who moved in with me for a month and made sure I ate, slept, and didn't spend all day staring at walls. So did the truth, the simple, powerful truth that I'd survived, that I'd fought back, that I'd won. And finally, I began to understand what my mother had done for me. She'd loved me so fiercely that not even death could silence her. She'd reached across the veil between worlds to shake me awake, to scream warnings I couldn't ignore, to save my life when no one else could. 3 months after Jackson's arrest, I dreamed of her again. This time, there was no urgency in her face, no fear, no desperate warnings. She stood in a field of wildflowers, bathed in golden light, wearing the lavender blouse and the peaceful smile I remembered from my childhood. Her eyes were soft, proud, filled with a love that transcended everything, life, death, the terrible things humans do to each other. "You heard me," she said softly, and her voice was like music. "My brave girl, you finally heard me." "I did, Mom." Tears streamed down my face, but they weren't sad. They were grateful, cleansing. "I heard you. You saved me." "No, sweetheart." She reached out, and though I couldn't feel her touch, I felt her love. "You saved yourself. I just reminded you who you were." She began to fade, the light growing brighter around her, but her smile remained. "I love you, Roselyn. Always." "I love you too, Mom." I woke with tears on my pillow and peace in my heart. The perfume bottles were gone, disposed of as evidence. Jackson was awaiting trial. The house would be sold soon, and I'd start over somewhere new. But I was alive. I was free. And somewhere beyond this world, my mother was watching over me, finally at rest. "Thank you, Mom," I whispered into the quiet morning. "I heard you." And in the stillness, I could have sworn I heard her whisper back, "I know." If you're watching this story and thinking about someone in your life, a mother, a sister, a friend who tried to warn you about something but you didn't listen, maybe it's time to reach out. Maybe it's time to say, "I should have listened." Or maybe it's time to be that voice for someone else who needs to hear the truth. Don't wait until it's too late. Don't wait until the warning has to come from beyond the grave. If this story resonated with you, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. You never know whose life you might save with a simple act of sharing the truth. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories of survival, courage, and the unbreakable bonds between mothers and daughters, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. I share real-life stories here every single day that will make you think twice about the people around you. Your mother's intuition was right. Your friend's concern was justified. That warning you dismissed, it might have saved your life. Thank you for listening to Roselyn's story. And remember, sometimes the people who love us can see what we're too close to notice. Stay safe, trust your instincts, and never ignore a warning from someone who loves you. I'll see you in the next story.